Hello, welcome back to One Man, One Dog Theater. This is video number 1. You should have already watched the welcome video because these are meant to be seen in order, but okay, you should have already watched the welcome video, so this is video 1 of my Seeing God series, our Seeing God series. Okay, the book, which you really should buy, Seeing God, A True Account of Divine Interventions. We're going to talk about this today as I walk you through the first and second time I saw God. We'll see how it goes. Okay, the introduction is basically what was in my welcome video. Chapter 1, Millbrook Road, 0 to 7. This is a time in my life when, well, I was growing up in the country, and you have to read the book to get this, but there's kids being shot by BB guns and being force-fed live bugs, and quite a tale. Okay, so then the divorce happens, my parents split up, and chapter 2 is West Side Story. You see, after my folks split, the family of, well, we had 8 kids at the time, was split up into 2 groups, the youngers and the olders. The youngers, including me, Matt, and Aaron, went with my mom to live in town in a 400 square foot crate we aptly called the Cracker Box on Maxwell Street. I mean, it was on the poor side of town, and I can tell you, I was familiar with all of the poor houses, and other than maybe my buddy Art, we lived in the worst piece of shack in Mount Pleasant, Michigan in the 1970s. So I was poor. Okay, now within a week of moving to town, I believe maybe even the first day, I started smoking cigarettes. Yes, age 7.5, I was smoking. Now, then I started needing cigarettes. Okay, now, being a super poor kid with no money, the only way to get cigarettes was through using the 5-finger discount. Now, the thing about that discount, I was a lousy shoplifter. Okay, so I got brought home by the police 6 or 7 times. Now, even in the 1970s, when getting caught shoplifting was little more than a slap on the wrist, eventually even the cops got tired of doing that, so I got a court appointment. That led to me, read it in the book, that led to me being sentenced to juvenile detention at Eagle Boys Village in Hersey, Michigan, which, by the way, is a great place, still in business today. Although now it's called Eagle Village because they started letting chicks in when I was there. Still a great place. Okay, so I went to Eagle Boys, and that's where I became a Christian. Now, I don't remember the exact wordage, of course, of the prayer, but basically, it was a 2-step prayer. The first thing you did was acknowledge God, the Father, as the Creator and Lord over everything. Okay? The second thing you acknowledged was that He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, down here for us to kill Him, so that could relieve our sins. Didn't quite get that concept, but okay. I said the prayer, went about my life. Now, this comes up to the first time I ever saw God. We're going around Eagle Boys in the van, 10 kids and a set of house parents, a husband and wife, all covered in the book. We're going by the horse ranch. I remember where I was that day. When I had this thought, I thought to myself, as much as it sucks to be here, this is exactly what my life needs. I mean, I didn't really put all this thought together, but I had structure, discipline. I was punished for bad behavior, rewarded for good behavior. It was everything my young, delinquent life needed. So, nothing actually happened. It wasn't an intermonial by definition. Because in that, if you go to seeinggod.net, you'll see my definition of that. Something has to physically occur. Nothing did in the van that day. But I I saw God, and I truly believe God saw me see him. God knows your every thought, right? So he knew what I was thinking in that van. And I thought God must have worked his miracles behind the scenes to make sure this is where I got put. So, anyway, that was the first time. Even though it's not a true intermonial. Okay, now, my first intermonial. Well, it takes a lot of walking to get there, but that's why you need to be able to buy the book. Basically, after I got out of Eagle Boys and released back into society in the 5th grade, I went through the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade without much trouble. A lot of camping, a lot of fun, a lot of great stories in here you need to read. But then my buddy Charles talked me into breaking into the Mount Pleasant Waterworks. You see, we had this B&E gig next to his house by the Avalon Bar outside Mount Pleasant. Townies will know what I'm talking about. We used to sneak in there and steal beers. He would never let us steal any cash because if they knew they had been broken into, they would have went straight to Chuck. He'd gotten busted for breaking into them before. So, all we ever took was beer, never touched any cash. So we were broke, but we usually had beer. Anyway, one day, over stolen beers, Chuck says to me, I know how we can get some bread, Blizz. That's when he came up with his idea of breaking into the Mount Pleasant Waterworks building. He said he used to work there as a janitor, and they had a generous petty cash fund and an unlocked drawer. All we had to do was go in through a window, which he assured me had no alarms on it, and walk out green as Christmas. Okay? So we went there, and that is meticulously detailed in the book, and it's funny because I had my first out-of-body experience during that, which is worth the read in itself. Okay. Without giving everything away, we got busted. And that led me to be put into the Michigan foster care system. The judge took one look at me and says, well, Mr. Blizzard, apparently you've forgotten everything you learned at Eagle Boys. Things aren't going so well at home, so we're going to put you in foster care. So, I went into foster care. And that's where I had my first intermonial. Of course, I didn't have the word at that time, but my first intervention. And that was a physical event I'm going to describe for you here today. Okay. So I go into this foster home, a mom and dad and 2 daughters. One daughter, Mayhap, was a year old, was a grade beyond me. I was in 9th grade, she was in 10th. And her little sister, Kimberly, was, I don't know, middle school or something. Anyway, their daughter, Mayhap, used to sneak into my bed in the middle of the night to kiss and hug. Okay, we had bedrooms upstairs across the hall from each other, and her parents were downstairs. Their bedroom was at the bottom of the stairs. Anyway, she was a virgin and wouldn't never let it go any further than, kissing and smooching, but she was beautiful. I was young. I was happy with that. Not completely happy, but it was livable. Okay. One Saturday, her parents and her younger sister all went to this neighboring town to do some shopping, leaving Mayhap and I alone. Okay. It didn't take me but maybe 1 minute. We were upstairs in my bed, and the petting turned heavier than normal, and at one point, she whispered in my ear, "Why not?" That was all the green light I needed. My pants came down, her sweatpants came down, and I was so close to actually consummating our relationship when God stepped in. Here's what happened. The phone rang. She stiffened up. She said, "Go answer the phone." I said, "No, baby," and I just, continued on. She said, "No, it could be my parents. Get up and answer the phone." Put on my sweatpants, ran downstairs to answer that blankety-blank phone. I picked it up and I said, "Hello!" Way rougher than I should have in case it was her parents. But it wasn't. It was my old buddy Bob, a friend I knew in like 5th and 6th grade. Okay? I had ran into him at a party must have been a month earlier, and given him my phone number. And he picks that day of all times to call. I mean, that particular second. I mean, had the phone ring 2 seconds later, it would have been too late. But it didn't. It rang right when it did. Now, I got off the phone with Bob. I ran back upstairs hoping Mayhap would be ready to continue, but she wasn't. She was in her bedroom, dressed, sweater on, brushing her hair, and she ordered me out of her room. She said, "Wow, that was close, huh? Get out." Anyway, I went across the hall, I went into my bedroom, closed the door, and I started yelling at God. Because I knew then and I know now that God made Bob call me. So, Mayhap said, "What's wrong?" And nothing. Put on my clothes, went outside. It was still spring, and there was a little bit of snow on the ground. Went down by the mill pond, and I continued my rant with God. I stood down there by the edge of that mill pond. I mean, I was GDJC screaming. I didn't even know what the 12 steps were, but I swear I went through all 12 of them that morning, from anger to arguing to, in the end, I was reasoning and trying to deal with God. Come on, give me that moment back, God. Please, I won't get her pregnant. Even though I probably would have. Not wearing any protection and being 15. Anyway. Now, a good critic, any critic of God is going to say, no. That's not God. That's just bad timing. You're reading way too much into this, Liz. Okay. I will acknowledge that argument. It's a sound argument. But let me say two things about that. One, that phone call was life-changing. You see, because within a week of that, this was a Saturday, within a week of that, she was dating a senior in high school. She told her mom about us. Her mom took me aside and said, "Chris, you got to go." I said, "I do?" She goes, "I already called Mike Mills. Mike Mills is my guardian angel. I love that man." She goes, "I already called your caseworker. Mike's going to be here within 2 hours to take you away." So I packed up my stuff, and Mike picked me up, and I left. Okay, so one, not only was that phone call life-changing, that's the first thing, but the second thing is, and this will come back later in these videos, I saw God. I saw God in that phone call. So, critics may say, well, that wasn't God, that was just bad coincidence, bad timing or whatever. No one can deny that phone call was life-changing. I would have had sex with her had that phone not rang. God help me, I probably would have gotten her pregnant. And her parents being devout, I mean absolutely devout Catholics, I can't see them taking her down to a clinic. As a matter of fact, I see a better chance of me being a 10th grade father. So, regardless of what caused that phone call, it was absolutely life-changing, and I absolutely saw God in it. Now, I know that's not a real big story. If you're watching this video expecting, big things to come down, well, stick around for video number 2, because in that one, I have another intermonial at my next foster home. But what happens is certainly more bizarre than that phone call, and might be a little tougher for you to explain away. So, I hope to see you all in video number 2. Thank you. Thanks for being such a good dog, Curly. And take care. God bless.